What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Be Better podcast. We are here with episode 21 with a special guest of ours, Risa August. Risa, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
And you'll
thank
have to
you.
forgive me. I have a little bit of a cold tonight, so I sound a little congested.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for coming on. I know Matt and I are just super excited to obviously get to know you a little bit more and learn more about your story, but also share your story with others. So, Matt, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, so Risa, well, tell us your story. Let's start there. What's going on? Where's it start?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning. So I have to say, in like 2011, I started noticing changes in my body. Now, I was always very fit. I was a triathlete, an Ironman athlete, CrossFitter, and I loved mountaineering, kind of more intense sports. And but I just started noticing physical changes in my body. And so I kept going to the doctor and saying, "Hey, can you check my blood? Can you check my thyroid? Can you check this?" And blood work was always coming back just fine. But there were definitely things changing. And it wasn't until about 2017 where things really took a turn for me. I was training for my next Ironman race and barely getting through the workouts, and then having a hard time recovering from those workouts, and barely finished the Ironman. I think I had like 40 minutes left at the cutoff. And I was planning to PR, I was planning for my personal best, but barely finished. And then following the Ironman, I couldn't get off the couch. I wasn't recovering. I looked at the HPA axis, adrenal fatigue. I thought it was like post Ironman depression. I was looking at everything. And I kept going back to my doctor, and she's like, "No, blood work's fine. You're fine." Fast forward to the next year, 2018, I started having severe headaches. I was maybe getting about 2 hours of sleep a night. And, and my doctor's like, "You're overtraining, you're drinking too much, or you're not drinking enough water." Like, there was always some explanation. And so I finally asked for an MRI. And my doctor said, "No, I don't think you need one. Your blood work's fine. You're an athlete. You're good." I was like, "No, I think something's going on. Can we just do it? Peace of mind, peace of mind." She's like, "No, they're expensive. You're healthy. I don't think so." And for a moment, I almost was like, okay, all right. Doctor says I don't need one. But I don't know if it was like some higher source or my spirit guides, but someone was like, "Get this MRI." So I said, "Order me the MRI." And so we did. And a week later, I get an email from her saying, "You have an enlarged pituitary. Go see an endocrinologist." I had no idea what that meant. I was like, "What does that mean?" And so then before I know it, I'm in this endocrinologist's office, and I'm looking at my skull on the screen, and these eyeballs. It looks really funny, but there's this massive tumor kind of lodged between my eyeballs at the base of my brain. And this endocrinologist is like, "This has got to come out." And I'm like, "Oh, I know you're not talking to me. I got things to do." I had races. I was like on my calendar that I was training for. I was like, "No, I don't have time for this." Like, and that's probably not even my image up there. And then she's like, "And furthermore, you have this rare disease." And I'm like, "What?" And the best way to describe this disease is it's called acromegaly. And if you know Andre the Giant, who was a wrestler and an actor, he had this disease. And a lot of what I'm learning is a lot of people with acromegaly don't like to use Andre the Giant as an example because we don't necessarily look like we don't, we don't look like we look normal,
Giant.
I guess is what I'm trying to say. Or and normal, sorry, that's probably not the appropriate word. But he was exhibiting very clear signs of this disease. And but it's believed that 1 in 5 people are walking around with these tumors and don't even know it. So yeah, so sorry, I'm still hung up on that word I used, normal. I didn't mean to come.
Oh,
That just
okay.
felt, yeah, that just felt inappropriate. But so yeah, so of course I go home. I'm waiting 3 months for surgery, hardly sleeping, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can about this disease. And best scenario would be get this entire tumor out and go on to live a potentially normal life. And worst case scenario, it comes back or they can't get all of it. And then furthermore, be on medication for the disease to control the disease. And so I had brain surgery, and 3 months later found out they couldn't get the entire tumor and it was wrapped around my carotid artery. And that I'd have to be on medication or I could choose radiation treatment. And I'm a very healthy person. So, which poison do I choose? I was really struggled with that decision. I said, well, if I go with radiation treatment, then maybe I don't have to be on medication for the rest of my life. So I went with radiation treatment, and I'm just now seeing some of the side effects of that, and I still have to be on medication. So it has changed my body so much. I will probably I'm never really run again. I'm challenged by hiking or walking far distances. I did backpack the Salcantay Pass in Peru and had a lot of pain with it, but loved every minute of it. Not necessarily the pain, but the trip. And but I started reflecting on my life. Like, oh my gosh, who am I now if I'm not this intense overachiever? Because I wasn't just an overachieving athlete, like having to do all these hard events and racing and training. I was like that in my life too. I was an extreme perfectionist. I had to do everything perfectly and be the best at everything and have the perfect home and life, and or at least let everyone think that, right? So I was now looking at my whole life differently, and I had to start shifting my focus of like letting go of that old identity and like what I couldn't do anymore, and start focusing on what I could do. And but as I was sitting on the couch recovering from radiation treatment and determined to prove everyone wrong, I had a lot of doctors and a lot of people telling me, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, you won't do that again. And I was like, oh, watch me.
Yeah.
And so one of my bucket list items was riding my bike across the country from coast to coast. And so I'm sitting on the couch in my tattered gray sweatpants, and I'm just for the heck of it, looking at some bike routes, and none of them really appealed to me. There's kind of less exciting, states, stretches of road in every single route. And that's when I came across the Pacific Coast cycling route from Canada to Mexico down the Pacific Coast Highway. And I
So
just,
essentially from like Vancouver to Tijuana, essentially, or to Baja, probably.
yeah, yeah, to Tijuana. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And
That's
and I,
insane.
yeah, I filled out the form and I didn't know how, I had 14 months ahead of me to train for this. And at the time I wasn't even like, I couldn't even walk to the mailbox. Like I was just annihilated. And I just filled out the form and hit send. I didn't ask my boss. Like I was just like, I'm doing this. I'm gonna take 6, 7 weeks to do this. And and that was kind of the spark I needed. That was without sounding over dramatic, I needed something to live for. Like I needed something to strive for, to work towards. And so this is kind of what catapulted me into, where I'm at today.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I I
Yeah,
mean
I'm
your
sitting here in
story.
awe, to be honest. I'm sitting here trying to find words to say because I've heard a lot of stories in my day, like people's background and everything, but that is just such an immaculate, incredible. I mean, the only word that we can say here is perseverance, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's just pure perseverance, and the will to live is stronger than anything out there, and that's exactly what you embodied. I want to bring it back just really quick because I'm curious because I had a similar experience with a medical professional. Um, so, are you in the United States or are you in Canada?
I'm in the US, I'm in Colorado. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so were you a little upset when your doctor, like, I wouldn't say they misdiagnosed you, but like they pushed it off for quite some time when obviously I think if you would have had that MRI years before, they probably would have seen something there, correct?
I was fucking livid. I was pissed. I was so mad. Um,
But hey,
and
good
I
for you.
and I
You
can get into more about that. I mean, yes, I was absolutely, I wanted to send the meanest email. I wanted to go in there. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because I had a similar experience in that case where like I have this disease called EOE, and it's just an esophagus disease where like I can never eat steak or fibrous textured meat again. So all my meat has to be like ground or like turkey or chicken because it's less fibrous. But like I could never eat a steak again, right? And I went to this doctor because I had a piece of steak lodged in my esophagus and I couldn't eat or swallow or drink for 24 hours. Anything would instantly just come right back up. And I went to the emergency room, and this is in 2016. And I said, "Hey, like everything I'm eating and drinking, like, there's a blockage somewhere, right?" And then there's like, "Oh, well, you probably have a gluten allergy. It just inflamed your esophagus. You'll be okay. You'll be okay." So it's going on 2 days with no water, no food, no nothing, and I had to work a full day, a 10-hour shift, and you know, the hospital I went to, I just knew something wasn't right. You know, I was like, this lady's wrong. I'll never forget. Her name was Dr. Washington. I don't know where she went. I don't know who she is now or what she does, but I was like, she's wrong. She has to be wrong. This is not right. So I went to another hospital like 10 miles away, Big Mercy, Matt, and
Mhm.
they were like, okay, we're gonna get a GI doctor down here right now. And I was like, why is everything okay? And he's like, no, this could kill you. Like, this is a big deal. We got to get you into surgery right now
Oh,
because the piece of meat was lodged here and all it was doing was rotting inside of me essentially. So there's a risk for bacterial infections, fungal infections, mold growing in there. And he's like, the last thing you want is an infection inside your esophagus. So an hour later, I'm knocked out, endoscopy, pulled the piece of steak out, and that was it. It was a 15-minute operation, right?
wow.
But if I would have went home for the next day or two and not had that intuition like you did, right? To like push for that MRI for me to go to another doctor and get a second opinion. Both of us would have had different outcomes, right? I mean, both probably fatal, right?
Mm,
So I just find a lot of similarity with your story there because like, God bless, I was pissed. I was
mm,
pissed. It's not a minor thing to miss up on. Like, oh, he wanted a red band-aid and I gave him a blue one, right? That's not what it is. Like, this is life or death situation. And your situation's definitely more extreme than mine, but I just feel very frustrated for you because if they would have caught this how many years earlier, what would have been the different outcome, right?
yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's my goal with kind of where this bike ride led me. And I started hearing, oops, sorry, that's my medication alarm. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
But so I was on this rampage, like, oh, the medical field. And I was so angry. And I met someone who, with the same disease, who instead, there was nothing he could do about it. So instead, he started this organization around educating. And it's called Pituitary World News. And oh my gosh, he was like, Risa, you can be angry as you want, but we need medical professionals on our side. It's like, we need to, befriend them. And so
Probably
we
give
can
them
work
education,
together.
right?
Hmm?
Yeah. And probably give them education, right? Because it might be something they're lacking that could potentially help someone else find a diagnosis in the same boat, but sooner, and have a better outcome, right? Because that's the whole point. It's preventing and figuring things out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so that's where I just shifted my focus. And there wasn't any use in staying angry. And so I started shifting, like, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do? So
Put that energy towards something else.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. You are a greater person than I, because I'm petty as all get out, and I was pissed for weeks. I was like, I got to write a letter. I was like, I got to call somebody. And I was like, you know what? It's not going to do any good. The problem is solved at this point. It is what it is. Move on. Right. But your situation is different because you have I don't think it's not terminal, is it?
It can be. And so the way these tumors are non-cancerous, but they're not benign. They often come with a rare disease. And my specific disease, if left untreated, would eventually kill me, probably a lot sooner than if I didn't have a tumor.
Sure.
So not benign, but yeah, depending if untreated, yes, terminal. So
Fair enough. Yeah. I
yeah.
can't imagine like the strength that it must have taken you to not only combat that, but kind of, you know, basically throw it in the ground and say, forget you. I'm not going to let this limit me. I mean, that's so impressive. It's so remarkable. I mean, your strength must be just out of this world, and your dedication is obviously apparent as well. I mean, I am a able-bodied, fit man in America, and I can't ride a bike that long. I'll tell you that right now. There's no way. I mean, and for you to have an illness like that and still take on that challenge, I mean, I'm just so in awe of you right now. It's just so awesome. It is so awesome what you've done, and what you're going to do continuously, I'm sure, is going to be fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it just really takes someone telling me I can't do something. And then I'm like, okay, well, we'll see about
Yeah.
that.
My boss, who we had on the podcast, her name was Ashley Bear. She was a couple episodes back. She always says a quote because everybody always counted her out as well. And she was like, what did she say? She always says it. She's like, tell me I can't and I'll show you how I do it, or something similar. Like,
I
and it's
love
true. I've seen people tell her she couldn't, and then she finds a way to do it. So you guys share that in common for sure.
Oh, I love that. That yeah. So I went on to become a patient advocate because I was learning how little information was out there, and how these tumors and these diseases were going undiagnosed. Um and I also took it as an opportunity to better myself as a human being, and did a lot of personal work and became a gestalt practitioner, which is a type of it's a holistic approach to it's like a holistic approach to coaching and guiding people through their personal struggles. And I became a voice for more people. And yeah, and then I focused on training for this bike ride and trained my butt off for 14 months. Was finally on a medication that was working. I was feeling great. And then COVID hit, or the pandemic, I should say. and my trip was canceled, and so I postponed it for a year, and which is fine, you know, now looking back. But from there, I went on to write a book about it, about my journey through diagnosis, but also through my bike tour. And
tell them about
also,
your book's name too. I mean, that's definitely something that readers should read and look into.
sure, yeah, it's called The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike. And you know, and I was also going through a lot of personal challenges too. So I really get down to the raw, like, authenticity of it. I was super nervous about publishing this book. You know, people were going to find out things about me they didn't know, and that felt so scary to me. I've trekked to Everest Base Camp, and I've ridden my bike down to down the Pacific Coast, and I've traveled around the world and lived in other countries. But oh my gosh, putting out my, you know, bare, like, authentic, vulnerable self was scarier than anything I've done.
Well, there's a big difference between being physically vulnerable, which is what you were in those situations, right? Physically, you were vulnerable. Um,
Mhm.
I know Mount Everest is a scary, scary place. I know that the trail is littered with bodies of people who didn't make it. So your physical vulnerability is much different than your emotional vulnerability. And like as all of us being humans here, we all know that sometimes the emotional attacks could be much more painful than the physical attacks. So in that case, you had every right to be nervous, scared, but the good news is as well is you did it anyways, right? You had these people and maybe your self-doubts that were holding these limitations over your head, and you were just like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyways. And
Mm.
people like us are glad that you did because, with a story like yours, not only spreads awareness about the disease, but I think it provides a lot of hope. And, I think hope is, if I could pump the world full of one thing, it'd be hope and oxygen. I mean, that's really what we need more than anything.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I had no idea how my book would be received. And I remember when the first non-friends or non-family people gave me feedback on it, I bawled. I was so like, what? Like, really? It inspired you, or you got that from it, or it's really been. I actually just found out that I won an award, the Independent Press Award, for inspiration, the category of inspiration, and thank you, and also the reader's favorite. So I'm super excited, and like, holy smokes. Like me, I feel like I'm just going along doing life and kind of floundering and trying to find my way, and holy smokes, like, wow, wow.
The it blows my mind how amazing you are and how many obstacles you came across, and you just kept jumping and jumping and kept going and going and going and did everything that you wanted to do without all the naysayers out there. It's truly remarkable, and it's definitely going to touch a lot of people out there and give them hope. And again, I just can't stop saying that I admire you, and your story is just remarkable. So I just thank you for being you.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
not you.
Can we do this weekly? Because this is great.
We don't have any agenda. You can come and be a guest as much as you want. It doesn't bother us at all. I mean, like I said, the more people that hear your story, I mean, there's only positive things that can happen from that. So, like, I don't care if we shot this for the next 5 years straight every other day. Like, I mean, like I said, the whole point of the podcast, like, if it inspires one person, if it helps one person, if it gives one person hopes, if it stops one person from committing suicide, if it prevents somebody from giving up on their dreams, it was worth it, right? Like,
Yeah.
this podcast, the whole purpose has never been about a monetary thing. It's never been about an ego thing or exposure thing. Like, I don't care if we stay a small viewer base for the rest of the duration of my life doing this. Like, it's all about helping that one person that needed it, that wasn't going to get it if they didn't see it. And that's what your story is, you know?
Oh, talk about amazing. Thank you. Thank you for offering that platform.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
absolutely. I mean, and you know, I want to pick jump back just a minute here because like I like to go on walks and hikes every once in a while. I like to fish. I like to hunt. I like to do things that I can turn off. My brain is typically, you know, boom, 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 fast, 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 boom, boom. I like to do things that slow the pace, right? And I'm assuming a lot of that ride, you know, from basically Vancouver down to Tijuana was, although you're moving fast and you're exercising, I'm sure it was allowing your brain to slow down and relax and, you know, kind of just soak in. So tell us about, I mean, did you have any like moments of that trip where you just like kind of took it all in for a second? It was just like, holy shit, I'm doing this. Like, here I am. I'm surrounded by the Pacific coastline, which is beautiful. Like, did you have any moments like that that was just like mesmerizing?
Oh gosh, yeah. I don't want to give too much away because a lot of this in my book, um, but you know, I would have to say starting at the border and like, holy crap, you know, like really, like when I leave here, like, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm going that way for 1,845 miles. And um, so I remember that feeling significant for me. There were plenty of times. So there was a ton of rain the first 2 weeks.
Of
So,
course.
you know, I'm camping and everything's just wet all the time. And I remember just like, you never knew what kind of shower you were going to get at the campground. And oftentimes they were like state parks and stuff. And I just remember being wet all the time. And I would like just want to get to camp in time to like dry out some things. And and so once I got through kind of the misery of that and started really, I was really consciously trying to focus on the positive. Like, oh my God, all I have to do every day is get up and pedal. Like, you know, and I'm so lucky and grateful to get to be doing something like this. And then there were times where you're so immersed in it, you know, like some of those West Coast cliff sides with no guardrail, and you have semis and massive RVs blazing past you, and you have like, I don't know, a 2 foot space and these big vehicles have this huge backdraft like pull, so you have to be careful you don't overcorrect too much and go over the cliff. and
Oh,
and
yeah.
so there were times where you're just like really in the moment, like talk about mindfulness, like you're just so focused on the moment, like nothing else really matters. And then you have the times where you come around a large bend and the Pacific is just out there in front of you and it's wide open and it's a beautiful day and it's like, wow, I get to be here and do this, you know. But I was working through a lot of personal stuff on that journey, and so there was that as well. I mean, it provided me that opportunity to cry or scream or be mad or whatever I needed to do or be alone or, you know, so all of that. It was, yeah, there was a lot packed in there.
It was, but it sounded like you got the it sounded like you got the true human experience, right? Like you had some good days, you had some bad days, but you were grounded. You know, you were grounded to that human experience of, hey, you know, there's a semi coming around the corner, like this might be it. You know, I gotta be on my game to prevent that from happening, right? And then other rides, I'm sure, just a straight shot, like you said, you come around the bend and you just see the most immaculate, beautiful, you know, sight you could ever see, right? But it sounds like on that journey, you were able to not only, you know, like you said, but like it sounds like you found yourself quite a bit more, right? Like you probably got in tune with maybe some portions of you that you haven't ever one, maybe haven't met, or maybe haven't seen in a long time. I know I always anytime I go through something very difficult, like hunting season for us is always difficult because it's freezing cold and there's no heat in the camper and you're miserable, right? I always find the real drive for me while I'm doing that, right? When it's 4 a.m., it's pitch black, there's mountain lions and bobcats around, you're walking to your tree stand scared as all hell. Um, you know, and then you're freezing all day. You think you're going to come back and get warm. The camper heater went out, so now you're freezing all night. You know, you really got to dig deep and you find out really what you're made of during those moments. And I feel like during that trip, you probably really was able to see I don't want to say primal, but the core version of you, like what really is in there underneath the human element of it. You know, like what your soul, I should say this, you were able to find what your soul is made of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, everyone is stronger than they might believe they are. Um, and so, yeah, so I think, you know, finding that within ourselves is so powerful and empowering.
So
Yeah.
I just want to ask, like, you're doing all this amazing things, right? And where do you find the courage, the drive? Like, what was the thing that drove you to do this long and amazing, scary ride? Like, what? I don't like. It's just, I'm so curious.
Yeah, I'm glad this is coming up because I have something else planned coming up in a few months. So
Nice.
I'll tell you about that in a minute. But what it's come down to for me is, and I don't even know, this isn't actually, I don't even know if this is any brilliant piece of information, but like whenever I would train for an Ironman and people would ask me why, you know, on the weekends where they're enjoying barbecues and, you know, going out or
Couch.
yeah, I'm in the midst of an 18-mile run, you know, all day or a long bike ride. Um and so and so same with like things like this ride. I do them because I know what it gives me. I know what I'll have once I accomplish it. And so I even went back to the CrossFit gym after all of this, and I'm actually not supposed to do any more heavy lifting and stuff, which I love barbells. And so that was another thing I decided I was gonna do regardless. But I'm not as strong as I used to be. But I go because I know what it gives me. I know how I feel afterwards. And you can put words to it, accomplished, you know, determined, like strong, like, but it's all of it. And so that's what keeps me going. Um, otherwise and this might sound extreme, but back to those days of being on the couch before I decided on this bike ride. And you said something about it, Nate, like it really did feel like life or death for me. It's like, well, I can sit here and die, and I'm getting a little emotional over that, or I can live. I can like really live. Whew, sorry.
No, you're
Um,
No,
fine. And I just want to touch on that really quick. So I've had this thought many times. I'm going to say two statements here that are just relevant to what you said. I think a lot of people out there in the world lack purpose. You know, all of us just live those 9 to 5, day to day, wake up, do our normal routine and our task, and go to sleep. And you close your eyes, and then you're 75. You know, like you wake up next morning and life just zipped by. I think when people find a purpose, and that could be whatever it is, right? Your purpose is obviously being physically fit and getting that reward and those endorphins and that dopamine release from being fit. But like that's your purpose, right? So that gave you purpose. That pushes you beyond whatever ailment you could ever have, right? I'm sure if you lost both your legs, heaven forbid, you'd still be trying to figure out a way to move around, right? So, you know, you finding that purpose is something that's critical that most people miss. I think the second part of it is you might be one of the most luckiest people alive. And I mean this because you had an ailment that could have killed you. But really, what it did is you getting that ailment made you experience life more than the healthiest person out there. Because now every day counts, every day matters, every second matters, right? Because you have a limitation, right? When you see somebody out there that's healthy, that you know they don't give a shit how many hours a day they sit on the couch and do nothing because like their clock is not nearly as empty, right? There's nothing pushing that button that's saying, hey, you know, this might be it for you, right? Whereas, you and the many other people out there that have these ailments that are, very difficult to deal with, like, I bet you don't take any day for granted. I bet every day matters to you, and I bet every day counts. And like, there's a difference between being alive and living. And
Yeah.
I love seeing people like you living, not just being alive, because you're living and you're actually experiencing that human element of being alive, but while living. And I wish, I'm not trying to sit here and say I wish everybody had a life altering illness that could kill them. I don't want that, of course, but I wish people would have events in their life happen, maybe on a micro scale, that would make them live, not just be alive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I really am one of those people that feels like it was such a gift. I mean, it has opened me up to so much. And like I said, being a better human too on the planet. And I was this rigid, athlete and always training. And now I can't do a lot of that stuff anymore. But now I'm doing so many other things. I've I'm actually really good at axe throwing. I never knew that.
Oh, really?
I took a circus aerialist class, so I was climbing on like silk ribbons and doing aerialists, and I've taken all kinds of dance classes and gone to theater. Like I'm just doing so much more, and my life feels so full and expansive. I just so I yeah,
Just
I've
why
really
not? Why not?
not
Why do you
yeah.
have to lose? Why not? Like, I love that. I really do. And it's just, I relate to what you're saying so much because this last, I'd say like 6 months for me, I've had a huge revelation in my life as well, where, like I lacked purpose. You know, I've always felt that I lacked purpose. And, making some big changes on my end personally, I won't get into, of course, but it's given me that sense of purpose. And not only do I find myself more overall happy and satisfied with myself and content, but like life is just so much sweeter when you find something that gives you purpose, because you don't ever go to bed like, oh, today was a waste, like it's never that feeling. Every day is special, every day is sacred, every day is a holiday. And I just
Mhm.
love meeting other people that are experiencing that as well. I mean, so God bless. If you want to do whatever the hell you want to do, why not? Just why not? What do you have to lose?
Exactly. And being in full support of other people too, living their best life. Like,
For sure.
I love it. Love it. What
It's the
about you?
best.
Yeah, no, it's just it's incredible to be part of this journey with you, having this conversation and help sharing the your journey. And it's phenomenal. I can definitely relate to with the overcoming some challenges and trying to step out of the box of comfortable or uncomfortable to comfortable, or I guess it's good to be uncomfortable, right? Because that's the living portion of it. And I'm definitely making some changes for my family that's coming up that will be uncomfortable, but in the long run, it's going to be okay. And I always like to strive the words, there's always a negative in things, but a true, to find the true positive of things is remarkable. And I think you really, really shine on that topic, or on that principle, or that statement. And I think a lot of people who's listening to this podcast right now can really grab that and apply it to their life, because it's truly remarkable to find a positive in a negative situation, and it opens up so much more um, better in someone's life. And not saying that a negative is terrible to not realize it's there, but just not hone on it, right? Because that's a lot of people might hone on it, and it's challenging, it's toxic, and they don't ever look at the positive. So it's remarkable that you are being more positive in the situation you dealt. So again, I just
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And and I agree, like I definitely didn't avoid my grief and my sadness. I screamed, I cried, I beat on stuff. I took boxing class. I've done all kinds of things to work through my emotions. And I also used it as rocket fuel to propel me toward transformation, right? So, and so, um, I think, when I started slowly shifting and seeing obstacles as opportunity, it's all about perspective, right? And then obstacles no longer are obstacles, like, because a lot of times you can go around them or over them or under them, and you're just finding a new route. You're just finding a new direction. And so, but it took work. It definitely took work, and I'm better for it. I'm better for
Absolutely. When it comes to obstacles, I go through them. And
Yeah.
I had a funny story of how I can prove that point really quick is I had a buddy of mine that bet me I couldn't get through this fence. Like I couldn't climb over it or whatever. So I tried to climb over it. I was like, hey man, it's like a 6.5 foot fence. I probably can't get over it. So I just ran full speed and ran through the fence. So yeah, I've always said when it comes to obstacles, I don't go around them, I go through them. And that's when it started when I was 14 when I did that. But anyways, um, yeah, I just think the whole thing about what you've done is just, I mean, we've said it enough on here. I'll say it again because, it needs to be heard. Like it's remarkable, right? And what I love that your story is really showing is like, some people have bad days, oh, I got a flat tire on the way to work. I dropped my Starbucks coffee and then I didn't get to eat a full lunch because I had a meeting, right? That's a bad day for some people. I have bad days like that sometimes. And I'm like a poor me attitude sometimes. And then I'll think about it like, man, there's people out there that are having it way more difficult than I am and are still kicking ass.
Hmm.
What's my excuse? What's your excuse? Right? Like, when I think about that and I look at people like you, right, who has had the whole deck stacked against them and still come out triumphant, still come out winning, still come out number one, and the drive and ambition is still there. There's nothing limiting anybody else from doing what they want to do, especially if someone in your situation can become a rock star at it. Like that should inspire everybody else to take the same initiative. Doesn't matter what your circumstances is, like enough willpower, dedication, and a plan, and you can knock it out of the park every time.
Absolutely. And I think you were touched on perspective there. It really is about perspective. Um and I think some people forget that they have a choice, or that maybe they don't know that they have a choice. And but the more you practice, the easier it gets.
Absolutely. So real quick, I want to learn a little bit more about the book, where people can find it, where is it selling, all that good stuff. Like, where can people get it? Because I think it'd be a fantastic read for our audience. I really do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. A lot of bookstores are carrying it now. And you can go to my website, risaaugust.com, and I have an author page on that website, and it kind of lists everywhere you can purchase it. And I do have it on paperback, ebook, and my audiobook was just released, and I was the narrator for it.
Oh, no kidding.
So that was, I had to really rein in my perfectionist side for that, because it was never gonna be released. So I had to let go on being the reader for that. But it was a really cool experience. And so all that is, yeah, on my website, risaaugust.com, RISA August, just like the month.com. And it's the Road Unpaved, border to border with a brain tumor and a bike.
Okay. I'm a huge audiobook guy.
Yeah.
And I just, I wonder if you can see this. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
Whatever. I just bought it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the support.
No, that's
And
fantastic. You have no idea. Like I love books, I love learning, I love reading, but like I like to multitask. So like I love throwing on an audiobook while I'm doing, chores at the gym, on my runs, whatever it is. Like so I appreciate you so much for making it multiversatile where someone like me who like my brain just goes too quick. I can't sit there and words on a page. It doesn't work for me. So thank you for allowing, to have it on audiobook where I can listen to it next time I'm on my run or when I'm at the gym. This is going to be fantastic.
cool, awesome. I appreciate
Excuse me.
hearing that. And I really struggle. I was going to have a professional voiceover person read it for me, and everyone kept saying, "No, you have to read your story." So
It's got to be
reluctantly,
you.
I
It's got to
and,
be you. It's got to be
and
you.
it's perfectly imperfect. And
Also,
I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be. And but yeah, thank you so much for the support. And I want to quickly go back to something we were talking about. Is that okay?
Oh, please. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
We were talking about how I think, Matt, you asked me like what keeps you going, like what, like to do these things, like ride my
Mhm.
bike down the coast. And I'm glad this came up because I'm actually riding my bike across northern Spain in May. And let me just tell you, I took French throughout school. And so I'm all like, these feelings are coming up of like, and I haven't traveled solo in a very long time, I think since my 20s. And so these feelings are coming up of like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And I go back to that, oh yeah, because I know how I'll feel when I accomplish it. And so I'm so grateful that this came up because that's just added to my fuel of like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And so thank you for that.
Are we looking at the future of another book after the trip?
I've been working on another book, yes. And
Yes.
and this trip I'm guessing will be a part of it. Yeah.
I cannot wait. I
Yeah.
cannot wait. That's gonna be so awesome. My wife actually did a what do you want to call it? I guess a school trip to Spain. She's of Spanish descent, so she is very fluent in Spanish, and
Oh wow.
she said Spain is just the most absolute beautiful. She was so impressed. You know, she was so impressed with how Spain was, and I've always wanted to go. So maybe we'll book a trip out there someday. But I mean, I think it's going to be just fantastic for you to do that trip as well. I mean, God bless, it's going to be amazing.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Where do you
Yeah,
start versus where you finish?
I love other cultures and connecting. So I'm gonna butcher this, but it's actually the Camino de Santiago,
Okay,
which is the well-known pilgrimage route, and it's about 500 miles. Which in my athlete days would be like, oh, piece of cake, but
cakewalk.
nowadays it'll be challenge for me, and I start in I'm gonna butcher this Roncesvalles, and I end up in um, Santiago de Compostela, and it's across the northern part. And I think I skirt the Pyrenees along the French border,
Yeah.
so there'll be some mountains and stuff. But it's a really well-known pilgrimage route, and also one that's been on my bucket list.
I'm
I
so
will give
happy for
you I will give you one advice since you're gonna be there. I'm a big geography guy, like I said. I've never been there, but I've read a ton about it. There's a small nation between France and Spain. It's called Andorra. Okay.
Oh yes,
It's
okay.
like it's like the size of Denver. Okay. It's a really small area. If you were close enough, I highly recommend you just popping in for maybe 30 minutes just to check it out.
Okay.
Apparently, from what I read, it is just one of the most coolest, nicest, humblest, like just hidden gems in that whole area. So if you get a chance, pop in there for sure.
Oh my gosh, if I can make that happen, I will definitely do that.
And then
Thank
take a
you.
picture and send it to me because I'm always
Okay.
curious. I've only seen like, fabricated pictures of like in books. So I've always wanted to see
Oh,
something
yeah,
raw. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. That's so
awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank
Oh
you.
God.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I'm nervous, but
That's okay.
I know what I get from it. I know what I'll gain from it.
Some of the best moments in life I feel people are nervous about, until they do it. And they're probably nervous while they do it, but the end result is what you're talking about, right? The end result is worth its weight in gold every time. Every
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
is there a quote that you kind of live by, or some type of what is it? It's a mantra or anything that you do to, start your day with or live by, or some type of creed, something like that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you two of them. So I actually do start my day and end my day with gratitude. So I do say all the things I'm grateful for that day, and then and I start my morning with that as well. But I don't know if I should say this. It's in my book, but honestly, my quote is just eat the fucking donut, because oftentimes we just get in our own way. And I mean this metaphorically, and it's just a donut. So I don't know if that'll resonate, with anyone, but
You're talking to two fat guys from Missouri. Yes, yes, it
But-
resonates.
yes, but it gets a chuckle every time. But and you'll understand it more when you read my book or listen to my book. But it's more about getting out of your own way and saying yes.
I'm going to send you a quote that is similar to that I love and I live by. It's by Anthony Bourdain. You've heard of this one before?
I mean, I don't know.
You know who Anthony Bourdain is,
I
right?
do know who
Okay.
Anthony Green is.
So
Yeah.
I'll pull it up real quick and I'll read it to you. And it sounds, if you've never heard this quote, you're going to be impressed by how similar it sounds. And as far as an idea to what you just said, right? So I can remember it in my head, but I don't want to butcher it. Hold on. Let's see what it is here. If I can't find it in a second, I'll send it to you, but it's not that big of a deal. But it's something that is so similar to what you just said. The whole idea of it is just flawless. And it's just, I read it and it's changed my life.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've never watched his shows or read any of his excuse me. I think didn't he have a memoir out or an autobiography or a biography?
Yeah, he did. God bless. What the hell? Where the hell is it?
I like to go by, one of my friends slash owners at this gym I used to go to. Their motto was "Embrace the suck" or something along those lines. And I think also one of the this one guy on this one podcast guy, I think, what's his name? Yeah, I forgot his name, but the whole point is, it's gonna suck. How are you gonna embrace it, or how are you gonna get through it? And just, just take it by the bull, take it by the horns. I'm terrible at
I get the gist though. I get the gist. Yeah.
yeah. So it definitely is something that I love to just, embrace the suck and figure out what happens afterwards. And, whatever the outcome is, you're going to be alive. As long as you're able to breathe, that's all that really matters,
So I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but this is the quote I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I've never heard it. Can you read it to us?
I can. So the whole idea is, eat at a local restaurant tonight. Get the cream sauce. Have a cold pint at 4 o'clock in a mostly empty bar. Go somewhere you've never been. Listen to someone you think you may have nothing in common with you. Order the steak rare. Eat an oyster. Have a Negroni. Have two. Be open to the world, or excuse me, be open to a world where you may not understand or agree with the person next to you, but have a drink with them anyways. Eat slowly. Tip your server. Check in on your friends. Check in on yourself, and enjoy the ride.
Ugh, that's amazing. Oh, I love it. I have the goosebumps.
It's such an incredible quote, and when I read it, it just puts everything in perspective. So like you said, eat the fucking donut.
Just eat it. It's just a donut. Get out of your own way and say yes.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think this would be a good spot for us to end things here. I'm so thankful not only to finally meet you and formally meet you, but have you on as a guest for you to share just a little bit of your story. I mean, with you, we just saw the tip of the iceberg. I think that book probably shows a little bit more. So everybody out there has my recommendation, my endorsement. Please, please, please check it out. I'm going to listen to the audiobook probably tomorrow when I get to the gym. I'm excited to start it. And guys, if you've made it this far, check out her on all of her platforms, Facebook, social media, all that good stuff. Buy the book on Amazon, whatever the hell you do. But thanks for being a part of the Be Better podcast. Thanks for coming on. And like, share, comment, whatever you guys do. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Truly an honor and a privilege. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah,
There needs to be a part two. Like you said, this has just been phenomenal conversation. And yeah, you're just amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us.